Tina Zinck, the Serene Stamper, and I have a really fun video for you today. I recently attended the Stampin' Up! Canadian Business Conference in Toronto, and I participated in 3 organized swaps. And the card I made for one of the swaps especially is one of my favorites, and it's this card right here. Isn't that pretty? And it's using one of our new stamp sets from the Occasion 2017 catalog from Stampin' Up! I love this card, and it's really fun to make. It's not hard, so I'm happy to show you how I made this card so that you can make some at home too. So let's get started. So this is the stamp set I'm using for this card. It's from the Stampin' Up! Occasions 2017 catalog, and it's called High Tide, and it's just the most incredible stamp set. I truly adore this stamp set. Love it. So for the card base, I have a piece of cherry cobbler that measures 8.5 by 5.5, and when folded it measures 5.5 by 4.25. So I'm going to set that aside, and then the Whisper White piece measures 5.25 by 4. So the first thing we want to do is we need to create a mask. So I'm going to stamp this image here on some scrap paper and then cut that out. Okay, so I've mounted this image right here onto my clear block, and then I have some post-it note paper here. So I'm just going to take my black Memento ink that up, and I'm making sure to stamp it down on some of the sticky bits on the paper. Then what I'm doing is I'm just putting it on a piece of scrap printer paper, just so that it's, you know, not sticky behind it when I'm cutting it out with my scissors. So I'm just going to cut it out. And once you've cut out masks for your projects, just tuck them back into your stamp case, and then you've got them there for the next time, and you don't have to keep doing this. Alright, so there's that mask cut out. And while I have this sticky strip on the back of my computer paper, I'm going to take my 1-inch circle punch and punch out a circle. And that's going to create the sun. So I'm going to peel that off and put that right onto my card. And before I put the Lighthouse mask on, I'm actually going to stamp it onto my card. So I'm going to take that same stamp and ink it up really well with the black Memento and stamp that right down. Gorgeous. Now I'm taking the second portion of the Lighthouse, and because I've used this so much with cherry cobbler, it is stained the photopolymer, but that's okay, it's just fine. Now I'm going to ink it up with the cherry cobbler. Make sure it's inked really well. And then position it right on top of your lighthouse. And push down nice and firm. Oh my word, isn't that gorgeous? Love it. So the next step is to mask this. So I'm going to put that Lighthouse mask right on top. Okay. Now I'm taking another piece of the post-it note, and I'm going to put this across the card to create the horizon, and I'm just lining it up with the marks on my grid paper. This grid paper is from Stampin' Up! And it is so good to have. Alright, so now we're going to start making the sky. So I'm starting with my Soul Saffron ink, and I've trimmed up the Stampin' sponges. And I'm just going to go in light little circles all across the top portion of the card. Okay, done with that. Now I'm taking my crushed curry, And I'm going to add a little bit of this darker yellow. And it's always best to go light. Of course, you can add color, but you can't take away color. So I recommend going lightly, and then you can add more color as you go along. Okay, I think that's good. Now I'm pulling in some Watermelon Wonder. And I'm just going to dab this off a little bit on my paper because I don't want to load that up too much. So this will make a beautiful sunset background. Keep adding until you're happy with it. And of course, every one that you do will be different. I did quite a few of these for the conference and everyone was different, but so pretty. Now I'm taking Perfect Plum and I'm going to go along the top and the sides. I didn't actually mean to get those swirls, but that's okay. Looks fine. And go along the edges. And I'm actually going to take my yellow sponge and just put in a little bit more yellow. Alright. So that is the sky portion. Carefully peel that off. I'm actually going to peel that off because I want to add some rocks on the bottom. Okay, I'm taking my smoky slate and I've added the rock stamp. I'm going to ink that up and I'm going to stamp it right around the base of the lighthouse. And it fits in there perfectly. Okay. Now I'm going to clean off my stamp because I want to emboss clear embossing powder on top of the rocks so that it gives it the look of wet rocks. So I'm going to take my first mark now and go over top. Now, my craft room right now is a disaster, so I can't find my embossing buddy, but ordinarily I would recommend taking your embossing buddy and going over this so that you don't get embossing powder where you don't want it. So going right on top of that gray with my first mark. Now I'm taking my clear embossing powder. I'm going to sprinkle that right on top, and then I'm going to zap that with the heat tool to set it. Okay, so now we've got some shiny wet rocks there, which is super cool. Now it's time to create our water. So I'm going to position this right back on top. Just like that, and then we're going to come back and do the mountains, but I want to do the water first. So I'm taking my Night of Navy and I'm going to add some color down here. Oops, let's put the mask back on. There we go. And that embossing, of course, is going to resist the ink as well. Then I'm actually adding a little bit of the Watermelon Wonder onto the water so that it sort of looks like this, the reflection of the sky is on the water. And I'm going to add a little bit of the yellow too. So this isn't going to be dark on the water, but it's enough that you're going to be able to see it. And then I'm just taking an old rag and wiping off the ink on that embossing. Okay, so now we've got our water, and now I want to add some mountains. So what I'm going to do is take this same paper and tear it towards me to create what I'm going to call my mountain scene. Just like that. And I actually don't want this to be quite so round. So I'm just going to tear some of that off. There we go. Now, taking my perfect plum again and my sponge, I'm going to sponge right on top of this mask. Okay, you ready to see the mountains? Ta-da! There's mountains in the background. So now we can peel off our masks. Isn't that pretty? Oh my goodness. Alrighty. The next step is to take Craft Whisper White ink, because I want to add some ripples on the water. And yes, this stamp set has ripples. This is really such a cool stamp set. I just can't say enough about it. Alright, so I'm inking up my ripples. It's this image right here that I'm using. And I'm going to stamp them right on top of that blue. Can you see that? So it just breaks up that blue. Looks so nice. Okay, the next step is adding the birds, and I'm using black memento ink for these. And I want to stamp the birds kind of going onto that sun. I love it. Just love it. So now it's time to stamp on my sentiment, and I actually want to use a stamp that's part of a celebration set right now. I want to use this stamp, Everything Will Be Okay. I actually have a friend going through some tough times right now, so this card is actually going to be for her. So this stamp set you can get free until the end of March from Stampin' Up! With qualifying orders. This is a really good stamp set. So I want to emboss it. So I'm going to ink this up with my Versamark. And I'm going to stamp it a little bit on top of that sun. Then I'm taking my gold embossing powder. And I'm being careful not to get any near that water because it's got that white craft ink that's still going to be a bit wet. Tap off the excess. And if you get any extra on there, just take a paintbrush and brush off that excess. This is why I wish I knew where my embossing buddy was. But my embossing buddy is missing in action. Alright, time to heat that. So it says everything will be okay. And now it's time to put the card together. So I'm going to use my Project Life corner punch and punch each corner. And I'm actually going to do the same thing to my card base. And I just use printer paper on the inside of my cards. So this is cut at 5 1/4 by 4, and I'm rounding off the edges for that piece as well. Okay, so I'll take my fast fuse. Oh my goodness, cat fur. When I'm working on my computer, my cat Lewis loves to cuddle up right across my arms. He's done that since he was a kitten, and he's almost 10 now, and he still likes to do it, and he's a whole lot bigger, and I get fur everywhere. All right, let's add some baker's twine to this. So I've got my cherry cobbler baker's twine. And we're going to wrap it around the bottom. I'm going to take a glue dot and just position it right here on the corner of the lighthouse. And it's sticking to my finger. Alright, there we go. I'm actually going to put one end there just to kind of hold it in place. Wrap it around twice and then tie it in a knot. Now, I know this card doesn't have to have any ribbon because it's, you know, pretty on its own, but I just find this is just a nice nautical touch with this baker's twine. Trim off the edge. Now it's time to put it on the card. Just like that. And the last step is to add a large rhinestone up here, and that is going to be the light in the lighthouse. So there you have it. So here's another one that I made, and this sentiment, there's nothing little about the light you shine, is part of the same High Tide stamp set. And then I made some birthday cards. My dad recently had his birthday, so he's originally from Nova Scotia and lives back home on Vancouver Island, so lighthouses are, you know, part of our heritage. So this was a perfect birthday card for him. So there you go. Aren't they just gorgeous? Oh my gosh, I love this technique. And you can see, you know, all the different skies, you know, depending how you do your sponging and how much yellow you add. And of course, these all have different mountains, just depending on how you tear your paper. So every card's going to be a little bit different. But oh my gosh, I love them. So I hope you do too. Give this a whirl. It's really, really fun. And you're just going to be amazed with just how beautiful they look in real life. So thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed that. Have a great day and happy stamping.